and all the plants and animals in our blue planet. Climate resilient development is essential for sustainable development. Mitigation is not the only solution, but adapting the climate change is also very important for the developing countries like India. While industries are moving towards net zero emissions by adopting various technological options, policies are also setting in place to support the transition. While Paris Agreement of climate change set the ball rolling out not enough to mitigate the expected damages that might occur due to global warming going beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade that you all know. Efforts are required at much larger scale, encompassing the natural, physical and human capitals of the country to mobilize in the direction of climate resilient sustainable development. And for that, adaptation planning is very crucial, especially for a country like India, due to its significant vulnerabilities to facing the impacts of climate change. As a diverse and developing nation with high developmental aspiration, India faces significant challenges including rising temperature, erratic monsoons, increasing frequency of extreme weather events, and the melting glaciers. These impacts pose threat to agriculture, water resource, health and infrastructure, which you all know, making adaptation planning essential for sustainable development of India. However, not only India but the global south, as you all know, is the victim of damaged climate for which they are less responsible indeed. And given India's commitment to global climate goals under the Paris Agreement and its own developmental priorities, robust adaptation planning is indispensable for achieving a sustainable and resilient future. So, this is the time now to speed up the implementation of climate adaptation practices and financing, taking up different nature-based solutions, including enhancing the carbon sequestration of different ecosystem services, etc., so that we can achieve the desired goal of climate resilient development pathway leading towards net zero. So today's conference is an initiative to contribute to the process of implementing nature-based solution to climate adaptation. The conference is focused towards developing a white paper based on the day-long expert consultation on nuances of national climate adaptation planning and strategies, which can be considered during the process of developing the adaptation plan in the coming days. So, in this throughout the day event, many distinguished and eminent experts, scientists, and academicians, as well as policymakers from the government, will grace the panels and share their valuable knowledge and experience on how to enhance the implementation of climate change adaptation and nature-based solution, which are the need of the hours under the overarching need of the climate resilient development. So I'll not take much of your time speaking on them elaborately. Rather, let's start the event early as possible. And also I'd like to mention here that to mark this moment specially, and make it memorable, we are launching our third issue of the annual digest of Celestial Art, which is named Save the Earth, which covers about Team Celestial Art's various initiatives to save our blue planet and make it more sustainable and resilient to climate change, and there will be other write-ups in the relevant field from eminent personalities and experts. So today, it is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce the chief guest for today's event, Srimati Rajashree Ray, Economic Advisor, MoEFCC, Government of India, a distinguished individual whose achievements and contributions have left an indelible mark in the field of climate change and climate economies in India and abroad. Mrs. Rajashree Ray is presently working as Economic Advisor in the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, Government of India, and handling the matters relating to the climate change, finance and sustainable development matters. Mrs. Ray completed her post-graduation in economics from Calicut University in Kerala. She was selected in the Indian Economic Service in 1995, and since then she has dealt with various subjects related to natural resources, agriculture and food policy and climate change of about 2 decades. As part of Government of India, Mrs. Ray has a wide and diverse experience having served in Indian Ministry of Agriculture, Commerce and Industry, Railways, Environment and Forest, as well as Finance. Mrs. Ray has been a member of the Indian negotiating team in the UNFCCC and other bodies such as G20 working groups. As economic advisor in MoEFCC, Mrs. Ray focused on climate change adaptation and finance issues. Mrs. Ray was the member of the Intergovernmental Committee on Sustainable Development Financing set up by the UN General Assembly as a follow-up of Rio+20 Process and Standing Committee on Finance established under UNFCCC. She was also a member of the Indian delegation negotiated the historic Paris Agreement on climate change in December 2015. Also, so today we are fortunate to have her with us to share her insights on India's climate adaptation planning and process and how we should move forward in this context in the coming days. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our esteemed chief guest, Mrs. Rajashree Ray. And we are also honored and privileged to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event, Shri Pradeep Tharakan, Energy Transition at the Asian Development Bank, a distinguished individual whose achievements and contributions have left an indelible mark in the field of climate change and energy transitions in India as well as abroad. He has nearly 25 years of experience working on global energy and environmental issues across South and Southeast Asia, West Africa, and North America. His primary expertise is in the design and delivery of large clean energy investment programs for the public sector, policy analysis, fostering intergovernmental and public-private partnership for the effective development action, and development research. Pradeep has worked for ADB since 2010, where he has led the origination, implementation and close out of energy projects and programs totaling $3 billion. Pradeep has a PhD in environmental science and master degree in business administration and public policy, and his academic research has been published in Science, Energy Policy, Renewable and Sustainable Energy Reviews, and many other renowned international journals. Today, we are fortunate to have him with us to share his insights on India's climate adaptation planning and process, and how India should leverage finance to continuously support the process in the years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our esteemed keynote speaker, Shri Pradeep Tharakan. Now, lighting of lamps, which is an indication of sparks of knowledge to eradicate the darkness as an Indian custom to start any process of knowledge, we would now request our honored guest to come forward and light the lamp and inaugurate the program. And before that, we'll take the opportunity to welcome them with a small felicitation ceremony. So, to going forward to the next part of our program, I'm finishing my speech here, and once again taking the opportunity to thank you all for your presence and participation in this important and glorious event. Many, many thanks, everyone.
The theme resonates very deeply with India's development vision, I would say. We know that, of course, when we talk about climate change and the various other environmental dimensions, there are immense challenges, and all those things, I don't have to repeat it here, all those things have been very well documented, and it is kind of being mainstreamed in the development vision. That development vision is a low carbon and climate resilient development vision, and it's very important that those actions are taken in a timely manner, because we know that the immense challenges of climate change, and these are not something distant issues which we are talking about. It's no longer a distant possibilities, but we can see that these are unfolding. Those impacts are unfolding before us with an increased intensity and frequency. So whether it is the devastating floods or the heat waves gripping our cities, or the rising sea level, all these are reflected now in our day-to-day lives. And when we talk about the extreme events, of course, those are then it has a lot of socio-economic dimensions. It's very important. Yes, we protect the lives, we protect the livelihoods. So when we look at the actions which we have taken, we would be able to say that yes, in terms of protecting the lives, we have come a considerable way, and compared to 3 decades back or 4 decades back. So a significant achievement. But at the same time, there are other socio-economic dimensions, including protecting the livelihoods. Those are very important for us to take forward. So IPCC in its 6th assessment report also articulated the pathways, climate resilient development pathways, and we have, of course, we can look at our actions, what we have committed under the multilateral treaty, then how we are taking it back home, how we are implementing it, what are the kind of frameworks we have in place, what is the institutional mechanism in place. Of course, the way we have a nationally determined contribution, then we have an updated one in 2022. We have submitted our long-term low-emission development vision, and how we translate this vision at the domestic level is through the national action plans on climate change, and at the subnational level, the state action plans on climate change. So those frameworks are in place. Now, how we increasingly integrate those these dimensions into our development path. Of course, it is a challenge, but it is also an opportunity for us to integrate the sustainable development dimensions in our development pathways. So coming to specifically to India, of course, all of you know that we have that diversity, large country with a lot of diversity, 15 distinct agroclimatic zones, so that itself reflects the geographic diversity which we have. But at the same time, that is also brings into the forefront the kind of vulnerabilities we have as a nation. And just for a moment, let us focus on the kind of economic development journey which we had right from that centrally planned economy just after the independence. Then the mixed economy features came into it. Now we know that our Indian economy has a lot of significant features of of an open economy, and today India has transformed into a one would say that a high growth economy. So then that growth path which we have, or the development trajectory which we have, that has to be sustainable also. So so it is very important that we have that transition to high growth economy. We value it, and it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and home to 1.4 billion population. So that is the socio-economic dimensions which I mentioned, that is very important. At the same time, how do we integrate the environmental dimension into our development trajectory? And India, being a big economy with 1/6 of the humanity in terms of population and all, so it's very important that we deliver on those sustainable development goals. We deliver on our fair share as far as achievement of the Paris Agreement is concerned. If we don't deliver, for example, just for a moment, if we look at it, if India is not able, if that is the scenario, if India is not able to deliver on those things, then world is not going to achieve the sustainable development path, or the world is not going to achieve the Paris Agreement goals. So it's very important. But at the same time, it's a developing country. There is a lot of development aspirations as far as the economy is concerned. One needs to be one needs to reflect on those challenges also, at the global level. So then of course you will have those discussions in detail about the financing aspects of it. Climate finance becomes very important, and international community has to be kind of reflective of these challenges which Indian economy has in order to have a global, meaningful global path as far as sustainability is concerned. Of course, there are various talks about the innovative financing models and all. So India has to be at the center of that climate financing framework, which at the global level we would be talking about it. So as far as the NDC is concerned, I just want to touch about the path which we have kind of taken, and whether we have delivered or whether we have walked the talk regarding that. So on 30th of December, our fourth biennial update report was submitted to the UNFCCC. It's just 1 week old report now. So that talks about the achievements in terms of emission intensity, or in terms of what has been the commitments which we kind of articulated in our NDC. Then what is the kind of achievement so far? So that gives, when we look at the numbers, that gives us a lot of confidence to kind of walking that trajectory which we have envisaged ourselves. So that talks about that emission intensity reduction of our GDP by 36% between 2005 and 2020. 2005 being the base year. So yes, that gives us a great amount of confidence for us to walk that development trajectory. And in terms of the share of non-fossil fuel sources in the installed electricity generation capacity, as on October 2024, it was 46.5%. So we are on track as far as our commitments are concerned. So of course we will take it forward and all. And it is also very important that when we talk about the economic development trajectory, and of course environmental, so it is also, we need to be very inclusive in our approach. I just wanted to mention here about the COVID pandemic and the kind of disruptions which we saw during that time. So that inclusivity is like, of course, maybe many people started forgetting about this behind us, but the kind of challenge which was brought in that time in 2020, 2021, and how the government had to step in as far as protecting the vulnerable sections of the society with the safety nets, and all of you are aware about the kind of public distribution system which played a big role in giving that safety net. Also, government came forward with a significant increase in the capital expenditure on infrastructure, so that we build back that medium-term demand in the economy, and of course aggressively implemented those data supply side measures and followed. So we had a kind of multi-layered approach during that time. So that also we need to have in mind about that inclusivity. I'm just talking about one important example. So going forward, that has to be an integral part of the development part. So just to set the tone of this conference with a lot of important themes you have. So it is very important that we know the kind of risk we have, climate risk we have for various economics, for various economic sectors. So and as I mentioned, we need to look into how the flood control measures are there, how the drought proofing measures are, how the disaster management issues are being taken, and what is the kind of frameworks or the initiatives, programs, policies in place as far as this extreme weather events are concerned, and what is the kind of approaches we have in the system as of now. So if we take for example, cyclones, of course, we have a very long cost line. So then that itself shows that kind of vulnerability as far as the coastal communities are concerned. And every cyclone comes with a lot of devastation, displacement, and what is the kind of approaches we have? We have a very strong, I would say, ecosystem-based approaches. Of course, today the conference is talking about the resilience, adaptation, and nature-based solutions. We would like to call it as ecosystem-based approaches very strong. And we have this National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project. We have this mangroves restoration protection, that is mangrove initiative for shoreline habitats and tangible incomes. The initiative called MISHTI. It's a very good acronym that way. So these are very important ecosystem-based approaches which we have, and so this is a very, and all of you know that mangroves is a big buffer, a natural buffer as far as dealing with the disasters are concerned. So these ecosystem-based approaches, we would say that cornerstone of our disaster risk management. Now, if we take flooding, and that is also we quite often see how the flooding that disturbance come both in the rural and the urban areas, and whether we do have approaches there in dealing with. Yes, we do. Flood management and border areas program. We have Amrut program. So all the focusing on the cities, and also these programs are in place, and we do have very strong this thing about the restoration of wetlands. That is also a very important ecosystem or nature-based approach which we have. So those things are recognized in the system. Of course, with the increasing frequency and intensity, we need to increasingly integrate and mainstream into it. So, and let me take another event, that is the heat waves. That is also quite prominent these days, and it has that urban heat islands, it is called in the literature. So that is also, it has a lot of implications for the labor productivity. It has a lot of implications for the health sector and all. So that also, and we have programs for that also. Heat action plans led by the NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, and we have the India Cooling Action Plan, which was launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. That is up and running, and we have mapped various ongoing programs of the Government of India, and added with the cooling component, the thermal sustainable cooling solutions, and at the same time it's a genuine legitimate aspirations of the people to have access to modern cooling facilities, both active and of course the passive cooling is also very important. So that is in place, and it's very much a part of the urban planning, especially focusing on buildings and all. So the climate change impacts of various economic sectors, be it water, be it agriculture, biodiversity, coastal ecosystems, health sector. Then it's very important that infrastructure resilience is the so then adaptation and resilience is a kind of inevitable imperative which we need to focus on, both at the global level also now, if we are with dedicated articles in Paris Agreement for adaptation and loss and damage. That is another dimension which has emerged, and at the domestic level with various programs, policies and frameworks in place. So we have it. We have to increasingly integrate those dimensions into it. We need to have a very robust plan so that investments are also guided by that robust plans. At the same time, we need to be proactive also as far as the adaptation and adaptation in various economic sectors are concerned. So, as I indicated, that we do have various frameworks in place with focused kind of ecosystem-based focusing here on ecosystem-based approaches, because we are here basically talking about the resilience and nature-based solutions. So, restoration and conservation of ecosystem is very much a part of our development path. So, and here we will be talking a lot about the various themes. So, and I can see that interconnectedness of the themes which you have for this conference, varied themes, and at the same time, that varied themes, if we look at it very closely, it also throws out a lot of complexities as well, and that shows the magnitude of the challenge we have. We have, and the integration of those into the development pathways. And while we talk about the plans, policies, integration, and all, one important thing which we need to be very we need to give a lot of importance is the financing. All these additional actions which we are talking about can come only if there are additional resources. So we need to find ways for mobilizing and provisioning of those resources. Otherwise, it would be as good as a kind of document or something which is not implemented effectively. So if we need to implement it effectively, we need to have those finances. So it's very important that we talk about, and of course, in your the varied themes and all, we'll be talking about the financing, especially financing adaptation and resilience with various financial instruments. Every financial instruments will have a role to play because they're given the magnitude of the resources which we require, and of course the transition which we talk about in terms of basically in the mitigation space, that's also very important. Carbon markets, there is a lot of role as far as the private sector is concerned. So everybody come together. That collaborative approach that is very important. So going forward, of course, national action plans on climate change. We do have 9 national missions now. Other missions, for example, the transport sector. That is something which coastal ecosystem. That is another sector where a mission mode approach is being thought about, and a lot of work has taken place in that direction. And of course, the revised state action plans on climate change, that exercise is going on, and all the 34 states have come up with those revised state action plans on climate change. So it is at the national level, at the subnational level, at the local level. We can say that there is at this point in time, there is a lot of kind of awareness, knowledge, and the recognition of the importance of taking climate actions, which perhaps at the subnational level and all that was not the case 2 years back ago. So we have come a lot in that direction. Now I would like to mention one last point. So this is about adaptation and resilience conference, very timely. I would like to share with this audience that India has initiated the preparation of the first national adaptation plan. We have identified the sectors as far as the first national adaptation plan is concerned. That work is in full swing now with the 9 sectoral working groups, and we intend to kind of finalize that plan by October 2025. Of course, a lot of stakeholder consultations we will be doing about that. So we are looking into at a very granular level the vulnerability at the district level. We are looking into those data and all, and accordingly we'll have a kind of strategy and plan in place that will be. So every decision, whether it is the state governments with the central government or even the private investments for that matter, can be guided by that document. So that is something, of course, these kind of consultations would definitely help us also in getting the right inputs from the stakeholders. So as I said that it is a collaborative approach. Every stakeholder has an important role to play. Central government has an important role to play in terms of strategizing and coming with the policies framework and all. Subnational governments have an important role in terms of implementation. Private sector has because when we have taken a commitment under a multilateral treaty, it is the sum total of all actions by all actors enable the nation to deliver on that commitment. So private sector has a very important role. Academia and research institutions, the inputs which they provide help us to make an informed plan and informed decision making. Local communities, they have, especially for the adaptation resilience sector. So what we look forward is a kind of a very inclusive kind of collaboration for a shared vision for our future. And resilience is, again, whether it is the National Adaptation Plan or various other, nothing is static. You have to kind of inform by the science, emerging science, and of course we need to, depending on the vulnerabilities and all. So this is a very dynamic kind of process, also learning, and of course accordingly that adaptation. At domestic level, we need to see that transformation. And when we are preparing the national adaptation plan, we also look into what is the kind of COP decisions guiding the different guiding the parties. In our national adaptation plan, for example, traditional knowledge and culture, that is an important. So that we have taken that particular aspect from the COP decision, and Rashmi sir is here. He is helping us in drafting that chapter, that particular chapter. And we have taken gender as a cross-cutting subject. Again, of course, it is very important for our domestic economy, that inclusive nature. So gender is that gender responsive structure, that is very important, but it is very much underlined in the COP decisions. So we have taken note of that in our in the preparation of our national adaptation plan. So as I heard, there would be a white paper which would be kind of prepared from here. Please do share it with us, or your recommendations and all. We will be happy to have a look at it when we prepare our national adaptation. It would be our NAP would be a vital and very strategic document which would guide even the investments going forward. So please do share with us. We would be happy to look into it as the steering committee as well as the working group. So with that, I think I thank you all for your very patient listening, and wishing you all the best for very fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I have no words to thank you by stating such a elaborative and such a beautiful narration of the government's stance and India's position in the national adaptation planning and how India should move forward in this context. So I just picked up a very important point that you have mentioned about the inclusivity. I think that is very, very important, and quite often see that a lot of policies that are being prepared in the country, not only here, in all other countries also, the inclusivity we miss out due to the complexity. So sometimes the trade-off happens between the complexity and the inclusivity. I think the time has now come that we should now prioritize more inclusivity than complexity. With that one, thank you, ma'am, so much for coming as a chief guest and giving your excellent speech, which has already set the tone of this rest of the day conference. And now I'd like to call upon Dr. Pradeep Tharakan from ADB, the Director, Energy Transition, to give his keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anindya. Good morning and Happy New Year to all of you. I'd like to thank TCE for inviting ADB to share a few reflections at this event. Just want to also highlight a couple of our team members that are here. Brij Mohan, who's our ADB's focal for climate change mitigation for India, and Akshita Sharma, who's our climate change focal for adaptation for India. So please reach out to them during the day. They'll be here for most of the day. It's a privilege to share the dais with our key client and counterpart, Rajashree Ray. and it's really a privilege. And also I want to highlight that one of my former professors is in the room. So Professor Madhu Verma, I was sitting in her class nearly 30 years ago actually. I was doing the math. So as you can see, she hasn't aged a day, and I have. So yeah, she was a professor at IFM and I was a student there, 92 to 94. But as we step into the new year, I think it's customary to sort of take a look back at the achievements, the milestones we've reached in the prior year, the year that's gone by. And I want to sort of bring your attention to one sobering and urgent milestone we just passed. So in 2024, average global temperatures reached the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold that was set, as sort of the no-go or try to not exceed level in the Paris Declaration. This is not a clear statistic. It's not just a statistic, it's a clear warning that impacts of climate change are no longer distant threats. They're here and now, and they're intensifying. So while much of the global focus has been on mitigation, on expanding renewable energy, on carbon capture and sequestration, on energy efficiency, as it needs to be, I think we've all reached the point of realization that mitigation alone is not enough. So climate change is already reshaping lives, economies, and ecosystems, and adaptation is no longer optional, it's an urgent necessity. And as we adapt, we also need to make sure that we identify who's most vulnerable, where they are, and how do we support them to build resilience. And as we adapt, we also need to make sure that we don't maladapt. We don't rush in and put in measures that inadvertently exacerbate vulnerabilities and worsen things for us. And what this means is safeguarding farmers from erratic monsoons, protecting coastal communities from rising seas, and ensuring cities can endure the increasing intensity of heat waves that was mentioned earlier. Now, when we talk about climate change, the discussion is often about average sea levels, millions of people affected, billions of dollars that you need. It's kind of overwhelming, cognitive dissonance. The human mind can't handle it. It feels too distant, it's too far out in the future, right? So let me bring this closer to home with a story from Kerala. And the reason I picked Kerala is that it isn't every day that you see two professionals two professional Malayalis sitting on a dais in a meeting in Delhi. So it is a special day. And secondly, Kerala is very vulnerable to climate risks. So it's a state with a 590-kilometer coastline, which is really a testament to the urgency of adaptation. Over the past decade, 1.5 million people have been displaced, not by choice, but by rising seas, crumbling shores, and devastating floods. So rice fields in Alappuzha that once nourished all of Kerala through its rice production have turned into wastelands due to saltwater intrusion. Frequent landslides in Idukki have made entire villages uninhabitable. And the Shangamugam Airport Road in Trivandrum city, which you've been to the airport, you'll see it. It's unstable and it crumbles with every storm. It feels like a metaphor for the fragility of this beautiful state. So in summary, Kerala loses an average of 3.5 meters of coastline annually. And by 2050, parts of Ernakulam, Kottayam, and Alappuzha districts may disappear from the map entirely. Now, this is not just Kerala's story, it's all of India's story. In the Sundarbans, 4.5 million people are grappling with rising sea levels and frequent cyclones. And it's estimated that by 2050, over 350 million Indians could face lethal heat waves. Now, this would lead to approximately 50 million Indians migrating out of the central part of the country on the Deccan Plateau by 20. These are not numbers to sort of take lightly. And without adaptation, India's GDP could decline by 2.8% annually by 2050, according to an estimate. Now, notwithstanding these risks and challenges, there is an immense opportunity to shape an inclusive, resilient future. And for that, you need to scale up adaptation finance. Now, global adaptation finance currently stands at about 30 billion annually. It's a fraction of what the world needs. For instance, India alone needs, it is estimated, between 200 to 350 billion dollars. So India's National Action Plan on Climate Change has provided a great foundation for climate action since 2008. This has to be updated, so that work is going on, as you heard. It needs to be reflecting current risks. You need to align national and state strategies. You need cohesive and effective planning. State governments and local governments play a pivotal role in adaptation efforts, and we need financial partnerships between state and local, state and central, public and private, and philanthropy and private and public to be able to unlock all of this potential. Increased technical assistance and access to finance can empower vulnerable populations, particularly in rural and coastal areas, because they are most exposed. So where does ADB fit into all of this? So the Asian Development Bank is the Asia Pacific's climate bank. We have put climate response front and center of our operational strategy. So at Glasgow COP, our president committed 100 billion of our own resources in climate finance between 2019 and 2030, with about 34 billion of that dedicated to adaptation and resilience. We have several ongoing and planned initiatives with the government of India to tackle some of the challenges I mentioned before. Let me highlight a few. So in Maharashtra, through the $42 million Sustainable Coastal Resilient Protection Project, we are restoring 80 kilometers of coastline using nature-based solutions such as mangrove restoration and dune stabilization. This initiative will protect nearly 500,000 coastal residents, safeguard livelihoods, and reduce environmental degradation. Similarly, the $130 million Himachal Pradesh Subtropical Horticulture Project introduces climate-smart irrigation systems and drought-resistant crops, benefiting nearly 20,000 farming households and enhancing food security. We are also pleased to be supporting the development of India's NAP. So this partnership has just been initiated with MoEFCC. It'll focus on select subsectors. As you heard, there is already a plan out there to set gender-responsive targets and prioritize adaptation investments. So this is the work that we have ongoing. Looking ahead, we are designing a few transformative projects that will aid in India's climate adaptation preparedness. We are working with some of the largest non-banking financial corporations in India to establish a blended finance facility that will contribute about $4 billion of ADB and NBFC resources, along with climate finance from the Green Climate Fund, to provide credit lines. So we're really thankful to MoEFCC for their endorsement of this facility. GCF has provided the first stage approval for about $200 million of climate finance, and we hope to be able to go and submit it for their board consideration in a few months. This initiative will empower MSMEs, farming households, and women-led businesses, modernizing energy access while addressing critical adaptation financing gaps. And finally, since I started with Kerala, I'll end with Kerala. ADB is closely working with the government of Kerala to develop the Sustainable Coastal Protection and Climate Resilient Planning Project with a total cost of $240 million. So this project is scheduled for approval early next year. It will work in priority sites across 13 coastal districts of Kerala in terms of building civil infrastructure for coastal protection, but also enhancing climate resilience through livelihoods. This project will safeguard communities while also strengthening institutional capacities for sustainable shoreline management. The truth is, we can't outrun rising seas or outpace runaway temperatures with half measures, but we can act boldly, embrace innovation, and invest in an inclusive and resilient future. Every mangrove restored, every farm made climate resilient, and every community empowered is a testament to what we can do and what is possible when we act with purpose. And together we ensure that adaptation is not really a reactionary response, but a proactive commitment to a sustainable and equitable future. It's really nice to see a lot of young people in the room today. This is a testimony to what the current generation is interested in and focused on. It is about survival. It is about quality of life and welfare. And it's also lovely to see a really good gender balance, which is often hard to see. When you talk about meetings when it relates to energy and environment. So thank you all for being here. This demonstrates your commitment to this really important cause, and I wish you all the good deliberations throughout the day. Thanks.
We're also inviting Rashmi sir. Please, you will also come down. We are now calling upon Madhu Verma.
That's very important.